Well, the resurgence of Black Lives Matter rioting continued last night, spreading from Philadelphia into New York, D.C. New York was the second city in as many nights to see cops run down by rampaging motorists. In Philadelphia, chaos reigned across several city blocks as dozens of stores were ransacked. Everything from shoes to large appliances were hauled away by thieves. Looters even hit Chick-fil-A, carting off, I guess, fistfuls of ketchup packets and Chick-fil-A sauce and plastic forks. And this in spite of the fact that Dan Cathy, the CEO of Chick-fil-A, recently got on his knees in front of an audience and shined a black man's shoes publicly in order to demonstrate his racial enlightenment. Yet they still looted his store. Just goes to show, once again, that you might as well retain your dignity because it will profit you nothing to forfeit it anyway. It's not going to accomplish what you hope it accomplishes. More tragically, some of the stores had only recently in Philadelphia that had been looted, had only recently reopened after being decimated during the first round of rioting back in May. And now these business owners must rebuild all over again or else finally give up trying to do business in communities that will leap at the first opportunity to pillage their shelves and take food out of their children's mouths. In fact, let's play a quick montage of some of the action last night, if you missed it, just for your reference. Here it is.
Where the hell is it? Oh, damn. Oh, get him, yeah. That's what I like.
So there it is, and such is life under a Democrat mayor and governor. Indeed, Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf has been relentless in pursuing and punishing dangerous degenerates who commit the crime of walking down the street without a mask, but is expectedly less determined to do anything at all about the looters currently terrorizing his most populous city. Speaking to reporters, Wolf, a man with the distinct aura of a henpecked substitute science teacher who can't control his class, had this to say.
As everyone is really sad by the death of the victim. And I think I share in mourning with the family. Anytime that happens is a tragedy, for whatever reason. And I think we need to make sure that we follow up, find out what happened. And my staff have been in constant communication since last night with the folks in Philadelphia. And the hope is that doesn't escalate into anything more than the peaceful protests that I think this kind of situation brings out.
And the hope is that this doesn't escalate into anything more than peaceful protests that this kind of situation brings out. It doesn't escalate into anything more than peaceful protests. He made this statement, of course, stating that it's peaceful protest. He made this statement after rioters had already spent the previous night looting and burning, and at least one police officer had been sent to the hospital with broken bones. This apparently qualifies as peaceful protest. It's not clear what would need to happen in order to be considered an escalation in Tom Wolf's mind. Whatever it is, my guess is that the rioters would have to change their political affiliation, and in many cases, probably their skin color, to earn a real rebuke from the governor of the once proud Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. This is what Democrats do, though, when you elect them to run your city or state. They simply sit back and they let it all burn, chiming in occasionally to offer words of encouragement to the people holding the matches. We've seen this same plot unfold over and over and over again, from Philly to New York to Minneapolis to Kenosha to Seattle and so on. Democrat leaders will not enforce the law. In Portland, the police have been so thoroughly gelded that they're now reduced to tweeting desperate pleas to rioters, the same rioters who've held their city hostage for half a year. Now they have to tweet at them to get them to stop. On Wednesday night, the Portland PD Twitter account sent out this message. Very pitiful. It reads, to those marching on North Denver Avenue, please be mindful of those who live in this community. Do not engage in criminal behavior to include obstructing vehicular traffic and vandalizing private property. We ask you to encourage those who are engaged in criminal behavior to stop. Shockingly, this does not appear to have deterred a single lawbreaker. Perhaps the police department will have to pull out the big guns and start tweeting angry gifs at the anarchists next. I don't know. Now, we could joke about this, of course, but the consequences of Democrat governance are not funny. They are predictable. And if you vote to elect these people to lead you, everything that happens next, all of the chaos and destruction that you had to know would come, is your fault, partly. And you deserve it. You quite literally asked for it. These are the fruits of the trees you planted. The only problem is that many others in your city or state who did not vote the same way, but found themselves outnumbered by these self-destructive and credulous people like you, must also reap what you have sown. Now, one other thing related to the Philadelphia situation that I wanted to mention. More information has come to light about Walter Wallace Jr., who's the man who approached Philly police while brandishing a knife, and whose seemingly justified death at their hands has ostensibly sparked the latest round of rioting. Now, as local ABC affiliate in the city reports, Wallace was an aspiring rapper whose, quote, central themes in his music were guns and shooting people. We're also told that he rapped about social justice. It seems mysterious how someone can be fascinated with shooting people while being simultaneously concerned with social justice, but this is a needle that most rappers try unsuccessfully to thread. Now, Wallace has a lengthy rap sheet. He had a prior arrest for assaulting a police officer. It's not clear whether the officers responding to the 911 call shortly before his death knew about that incident or not. But more noteworthy is his 2017 conviction for robbery and assault. Reportedly, that crime involved, quote, kicking down the door of another woman and putting a gun to her head. Now, if this sounds familiar, that's because George Floyd was convicted of doing almost exactly the same thing, except in his case, he forced his way into a woman's home and put a gun to her stomach rather than her head. So Wallace's actions are reminiscent of things we've already seen, including Jacob Blake, who allegedly broke into a woman's house, raped her, then stole her debit card and her vehicle. If you're keeping track at home, that makes 3 recent BLM martyrs with a history, in 2 cases confirmed, in 1 case very credibly alleged, of brutalizing and abusing women in unspeakable ways. We could also add to the list Ricardo Munoz, who's the man shot by Lancaster police after charging at them with a knife. He had several previous convictions, the worst one being a recent spree where he stabbed 4 people, including a minor and a 22-year-old woman. Though he did appear to be an equal opportunity felon, in fairness, stabbing men and women alike. Now, all of these men have been performatively mourned. The names of at least 2 of them, and now probably 3 when Walter Wallace is added to it, have graced the helmets of NFL players. They've been memorialized as heroes of their community. Joe Biden infamously visited with the credibly accused rapist Jacob Blake's family and spoke with Blake himself on the phone. And complimented him afterwards. Last night, Biden tweeted out his heartbreak over the death of Wallace. And while we're implored to say the names of these men and celebrate their lives and weep over their deaths, or injuries in Blake's case, their female victims are erased from the discussion. Their names are not mentioned or allowed to be mentioned. Their suffering does not count. Nobody ever stops to ask how they must feel to see their abusers lauded in this way. Nobody asks for their perspective, and if they were to offer it, they'd be shouted down, or worse. And we all know that. This is what BLM and the Democrat Party thinks of women who don't fit neatly into the script, don't cooperate with the program. Mostly, they think nothing of them. They don't acknowledge their existence. And we're expected to follow that lead, making the violent criminals into victims, but never speaking a word about the victims of the violent criminals. It is by this silence that the left crafts and maintains its narrative. So I say we should not be silent about it anymore. Hey, you, you right there. Hit the subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It's somewhat appreciated.